Peace and blessings to all of God's children. It's Sunday morning. It's around 4:30, 4:35 in the morning. And I'm up preparing to attend church, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I mean, nothing is really promised to us in this life. But the reason I'm on here this morning, I brooded on something since I got up a lot earlier, took my shower, got ready for, and it just got into my spirit, and I want to come on here and pass it on. What I want to speak to you about this morning is behavior modification. No, I don't want to talk to you just about prison. This is widely used in prison through programs. And the premise in prison is that you're in here because of your ill practices, criminal activities, and your behavior needs to be changed. Now, let me go back. When you study the history of penology, you would find that the Quakers in Pennsylvania came up with the concept of, rather than beating people, cutting off pieces of their hand, it was more civilized that when people committed crimes, to put them somewhere in isolation to reflect upon their crimes. Now, that is how penology initially started. Over the years, excuse me, as events took place, of course, penology evolved into the monstrosity that we have here. As I said in another video that I did, the idea of private prisons is not a new thing. It's not something that just came about. I had that mistaken myself. I thought that maybe private prisons was something new that came up maybe in the 70s or the 80s. I found out that the same year the Emancipation Proclamation was enacted, that same year the United States Constitution developed the 13th Amendment, which says slavery is prohibited unless you're convicted of a felony. So in other words, the slaves were freed, a stipulation was made to return them, no, not back to chattel slavery, but criminal behavior. And let me add something here. And what I found out in my years of studying law, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't have no degrees to hang on the wall to tell you about it, but what I noticed is that the laws within themselves are beautiful. It's not the laws, it's the enforcement of the laws. We see that today. We have a seated president that has been convicted for more felonies than I have. And I'm considered a career criminal by the federal government and various states. The law deems me a career criminal. We have an individual sitting in the White House that's been convicted, but the enforcement allows him to go on and be seated in the White House. Now, I don't want to get stuck on that. I'm just merely explaining to you how incarceration laws and, yes, Emancipation Proclamation, 1865, they developed the 13th Amendment, 1865, and also private prisons. So I'm not saying everybody involved in penology or corrections is something to do it. I'm speaking to you about the factual information for you to see. However, behavior modification is the reason many of us are so prejudicial and so judgmental about any or everything that is beyond our understanding or our comprehension of a thing. See, what we don't understand and comprehend, we fear. And as I say so much, distraction is one of the devil's greatest tools in order to mislead us and have us think that we're doing one thing and we're doing another. One of the things that stood out to me, and I'm going to voice it here, when I got out of prison, was I met so many people who outwardly looked the role of black, this and that. But when I looked in their eyes, I saw another creature on the inside. So what I'm saying is the darkness they had on the inside, because of whatever reason, had turned purely demonic. Yeah, they had the look, they had the flesh tone, they had all the exteriors, but the inside was still like Steven, that character Steven in Django was the same thing. So W.E.B. Du Bois, he wrote a book many years ago called The Souls of Black Folks. In that book, he goes on to explain those horrendous experiences and how they shape us. But here's what I want to notate, because I get this all the time. This is real time, right now. There's nothing historical and nothing in the future. This is right now. Rasta man, what are you doing in the church? I can answer that real simple and easy for you. I'm in the church because I have the knowledge of our historical gathering in the church. I know what the church is capable of. See, it's the people in the church that makes the church. And we are all there to work things out. But we've assumed over the years positions that once you say or do certain things, you automatically cut the button off. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm speaking truth this morning. The colors that you see in the background, the red, the gold, and the green, do you know it's my own people that had the biggest problems about that? Because they fail their history. And I mean intelligent people. It goes only back to what the Greek conquerors and Roman conquerors wrote and placed in a book and told them. Their behavior has been modified from what the Creator, and let me emphasize this, we are created by a perfect Creator. No. Yes, we are all here together. We are to work together, but we are not the same. I constantly get info from people who read the scriptures and declare all types of things. As I say, you got a divine right to believe whatever you want to believe. But the teachings of Christ, and let me point something else out here. You Bible readers, if you get real with yourself, you'll see that Christ's biggest problems came from the political, governmental situations of his days. When he went in the temples, he had to go in there and turn the tables over. That's not no weak-kneed, just get along type person. He said, you're going to get this out of my Father's house. The Christ that I know and studied was what we would call today a revolutionary. A revolutionary is someone used by God to bring about change. Because here's something y'all don't want to face. God is not going to change our condition until we change. I don't care, Old Testament, New Testament. I done sat down with some brilliant minds, and right away I noticed how most people are defending what's been told to them, secondhand knowledge, rather than going into this word and finding out for themselves. We have been hoodwinked, tricked into believing in oratory, entertainment, feel good. It's like going to a rock concert. Some people just go to church to model their clothes, and I'm not condemning that. I mean, church, how you choose to believe, that's your business. But the point I'm trying to make is, people who ask me, why am I in the church? How can you say to yourself, you are doing something about something and you have nothing to do with it? And I'm going to tell you something else. My life experiences, as W.B. Du Bois wrote in his seminal book, The Souls of Black Folks, church people were the ones God set around me to help me when all of you people asking me all these questions when I'm doing it. I couldn't find none of y'all. Now, I'm in a church, and there's times that things are needed to be done around the church and places like, and I thank God, I'd rather be a servant in the house of Christ. Is who I serve. I don't serve other people's opinions, and I do not serve this dumbed down mental behavior modification that y'all think is knowledge. It's not. You have been fed major departures from the teachers in Christ, and you know it yourself. See, that's all in that darkness on the inside of you. Christ had problems with the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin. The guy in charge of the Sanhedrin was a guy named Caiaphas. Caiaphas manipulated the Roman government, who feared another insurrection like they had 70 years before Christ happening there, because people in power are interested in maintaining power. They're going to seek out who are the leaders and immediately attach themselves to them to represent their personal interests. We got that going on now. You look at government now, you're seeing the same story being played over and over again. And why I'm on here this morning is to say, when are we going to stop trying to act like the people who are creating all the problems? And I'm not just talking about white, I'm talking about anybody who supports things other than the teachings of Yahshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ. And in Matthew chapter 10:6, Christ says, go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. Now, let me tell you something about that. I have all types of crackpots coming in here and talking about Christ didn't come to everybody. He came only to the lost sheep. Hold them up. Who are the lost sheep of Israel? See, that question that this person is framing is centered around his misunderstanding of who the lost sheep of the children of Israel are. Now, this morning, like I said, I've been brooding over this for some days, but this morning, a queen mother sent me a message, and if she ever watches this, she'll know who I'm talking about. I give all thank God they put it in there. She sent me a video where pastors, and I'm not just saying every pastor is an anointed, appointed man of God, and I don't know how they use. See, we got this thing that if pastors don't be saying what we want to hear, he's some other. He is being used by the Holy Spirit. But pastors are preaching from the pulpit. I'm not a pastor. I'm just a student of history and theology and what have you. But listen, they are preaching who the real children of Israel are, who the chosen are. Now, the history of my people bears witness to who we are. I mean, when you look at the history, the people who brought us into any form of slavery, that history is incomplete. Our people was here already. All of us wasn't brought over in slave ships. We weren't. But institutions, principalities, and high places has changed the roles. And what I'm saying now, the signs and the symbols that we have before us now, pastors are preaching it from the pulpit. Like them or hate them, but they got to bring the truth. And the truth can't be hid no more. Technology. Let me tell you something. The people who are trying to keep us enslaved within this devil philosophy we've been fed, and I call that devil philosophy ghost spell, not gospel, ghost spell. We're in a sleepless slumber. We are looking for a spook God. And now, I'm not calling the God you worship a spook. I'm saying we are functioning in a delusion. And I want to read to you what behavior modification is. Behavior modification is an alteration of behavior patterns through the use of such learning techniques as biofeedback and positive and negative reinforcement. Now, let me tell you what positive and negative reinforcement is. Classical conditioning can use punitive, even barbaric ways and means, such as the whip, such as emasculation, such as hanging and terror, the things that went on in chattel slavery. That's classical conditioning. Then you have operant conditioning. And why I know this is because I was constantly subject to this in prison. And I wanted to know, what was this going on? So I studied the psychological theses on positive reinforcements and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcements is called operant conditioning. In other words, they condition you through an operation. The operation is tainted religiosity. See, we got religiosity mixed up with spirituality. We are misidentifying ourselves. No, I'm not saying throw away everything that's made us over the years. I'm saying evolve from the plantation to what Christ asked us to do in John 8:32. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You are not what you identify yourself as through this behavior modification. Behavior modification is a set of techniques that alter behavior through the reinforcement and punishment. The goal is to improve desired behaviors and reduce undesirable ones. In prison, I was undesirable. They tried to use surrogation to break me, and they used other means to bring me into the fold. After years of futile improvement with me, they decided, well, let's put him in a role and see can we manage him. Or as they say in prison, put him on a pay it no mind list. Just throw him to his own cause. We know that this system we have in effect will eventually catch up with him. Now, I know a lot of y'all have y'all opinions about the making of a slave. It's a letter by some master slaver called Willie Lynch. It's a short letter, and if you ever read that letter, you cannot read that letter and not look around in today's time and not see how that formula is not operating in our lives. We as African descended people are our own worst enemy because our behavior has been modified. We have been injected with a Eurocentric mindset. One of the worst things that happened to us here. No, it wasn't the slavery, getting out of slavery and all of that. The worst thing is this notion of integration. They didn't give us, we wanted equal rights and justice. They gave us a simulation. We can only progress as we see here if we assume the identity of those who are in power. We're not worshiping God, we're worshiping men and their principles here. And that's what's eating us up. That's what I see in the eyes of a lot of people. Yeah, you got black skin, but what I see staring back to me is something out of them caves in the Caucasus Mountains back in antiquity. The soul we have lost, we have traded our souls in for the bag. The reason we have so much self-hate is that we hate ourselves. And when you have self-hate, you hate everything that looks like you. Especially when they come around you talking as if they're Afrocentric, but demonstrating Eurocentric, Dark Ages mentality. I'm just saying. We are arguing for a seat at a table we don't need to be in. We need to find out whose we are and who we are and start cultivating our own empowerment. See, they don't want us to know our real truth about ourselves. They want us to be consumers. They want us to be striving and killing each other because we ain't acting like them. That's what it's coming down to. The Civil War is still being fought from the 1800s. Now, if you don't see that, if you can't come to terms with that truth, it's something on you. So if it's in the streets, if it's in the church, but I would suggest to bring this realization in your homes and prepare your children. We have to save our children. We can't allow them to keep repeating, turning their back on what they came from, making them ashamed of who they are. We must teach them their true history. We can't expect nobody to feed our children or ourselves with what's good for us. Even the food around us now. Is anybody paying that any attention? I'm just saying this. You can believe what you want to believe. That's your divine right. But if you choosing to ignore all the signs and symbols all around you now, then we don't have nothing in common. I'm not saying one way or another, because see, with God will use whatever to make us come back to our natural selves. Power is just not in accumulating things here in earth. As a wise man said, you're not going to see a U-Haul trailer attached to a hearse. You can't take it with you, bro. So try to learn to love yourself, honor yourself, respect yourself. And this is what you will be able to take to others. This is what your children will see in you. You parents know children very rarely do what they say. They do what they see you do. And then we get frustrated with the child, but where did the child get it from? It's called responsibility and accountability. And we can't find that through the expectations or anticipations of others. Let's get our fields, become farmers, and cultivate our own inner strength. I pray you'll be rich blessedly by that. One love, one aim, one destiny. Peace.